This video is for entertainment and educational purposes only. Hey guys, Big Paul here. I got an interesting one for you today. I've been on a YouTube binge today. Not only do I record YouTube videos, unlike you, I sit around and watch a ton of them too. There's nothing else to do. I'm sitting at home with COVID, so I'm watching YouTube videos. I apologize if I'm a little scratchy with my voice and stuffed up, so hopefully this isn't too terrible. But I wanted to record a video about this while it was still fresh in my mind. It'll probably be airing on my channel long after I'm recovered from COVID. But anyway, there was a podcast or video podcast with Milos Sarcev, Dennis James, Flex Wheeler, and Chris Cormier, where they were, it's an old guy bodybuilding podcast talking about the dangers of ego lifting. And they were all reminiscing about the hardcore training they did when they were younger and how they're paying the price for it now with injuries and having to have surgeries done and not being able to train the way they used to be able to train because of damage they did to their bodies. And they were talking about how a lot of it was just unnecessary, and if they had just pulled back a little bit, they would have been able to maintain their health, their joint health, and skeletal health and connective tissue health better if they just pulled back and trained a little smarter. There was this pervasive attitude in the 90s that you had to go balls to the wall, to failure, hardcore, with heavy weights all the time, or you weren't making progress. And we know now that that's not necessarily required all the time. There are times you need to push things. Anyway, let's hear what Flex Wheeler had to say. He recently had a back surgery, and he said that the back surgery was due to injuries that he had from squatting heavy. He was recalling when he felt his spine crunch from squatting 6 plates. Anyway, here's what he had to say.
It's interesting. All of us, including DJ and you, Milos, we've all pounded weight. We just didn't believe that you can't build big legs without stupid weight. I remember you even had an analogy, Milos, that when you took a break, when you came back in the gym, you expected to be able to start off where you left squatting. I don't know your mentality now, but my logic now is it's so wrong. It's just damaging. Your body can't endure that, type of pace, which it takes a lot of energy to make a car go fast. But it doesn't take a lot of energy. It doesn't take a lot of energy to keep that car going fast once it's up to speed. So it takes a lot for us to build this just enormous, crazy size that all of us had. But it doesn't take a lot to keep that. We don't have to keep pushing as hard. So, I came from an era where just, if you wasn't strong, you were a punk. I trained with 2 of the guys, and one of the guys notably strong as anybody in the world, which was Chris. So I had to go heavy. I remember, squatting 6 plates, and I could just feel my vertebrae just compressing. But, I got these guys screaming at me, like, don't be a PUSSY, don't be a punk,
Yeah.
And but we didn't know. We didn't know back then,
It's funny. Flex talked about he could feel doing himself doing damage to his spine, but he kept going because he didn't want to be a pussy. I've been there before. I have done stupid shit in the gym. I have literally felt myself tearing muscles or tearing ligaments, whatever, and I just keep going. I kept going because I don't want to back out and be soft. I have done that in the past, and I've hurt myself. I've had multiple surgeries. And looking back on it, it was for nothing. Really, if you're hurt, you can't train. And if you can't train, you can't make progress. Milos goes on to talk about how his father warned him about this. His father was a doctor. And then now how he's trying to spread the word to young guys that you don't have to do these heavy compound lifts to failure all the time. He gives the example of Ronnie, how Ronnie's crippled now from the way he lifted. I mean, he's in his 50s and he's in a wheelchair. And you look at the guys, you look at guys like Dexter Jackson who train smarter, and he's in great shape. Anyway, let's hear what Milos had to say about it.
I tell you this, when I was starting my bodybuilding, my father, psychiatrist, doctor, he told me, hey, hotshot, wait until you're 40 and 50, and then you're going to see what is this doing to you. And I honestly said, like, what the hell are you talking about? I'm going to be training since teenager until I'm 40, and I'm going to be so much stronger than average person. I'm going to be, but body is not designed to be pounded this way. And we see with Ronnie, all of us have some kind of injuries. We are halfway crippled. So when this go heavy, go home, go all out, right? It sounds great when you're 20 and 30, but one thing that I'm trying to spread to the people right now, be smart about it. Like you said, you were doing 6-plate squats and your vertebrae, you felt, bending left and right.
Milos said it as plain as you could say it. Train smart. And I think there's a lot of bodybuilders don't think about their training. I see a lot of dudes in the gym that don't think about their training. And they just come in, they're heaving weights around. They feel like they have to put the most weight up. They have to train hardcore, or if they're not training hardcore, they're not, making progress. It's funny to me because a lot of the dudes I see that go in and do all the stupid ego lifting aren't even the big guys. There are some big, strong guys, but a lot of the dudes I see heaving weights around and doing shit that's doing damage to their body aren't even that big. And another thing that's ironic, there's this mentality in bodybuilding that you have to go to failure, beyond failure, and push yourself beyond your limits all the time to make progress. It's hilarious to me because you look at power lifters. They're some of the most hardcore motherfuckers out there. They're stronger than bodybuilders, but power lifters, think about it. How often do power lifters go to failure? Almost never. Power lifters almost never go to failure. They periodize their training. They do blocks of training where they schedule out. They're doing whatever 60% of their 1 rep max this week, and then they bump it up the next week, and they periodize their training and they do their training in blocks. Bodybuilders don't do that. It's just balls to the wall until the wheels fall off, and it's nonsensical. You can lift heavy. You can lift hard, but you're going to pay a price for it after a while. And please don't get me wrong. There are times that you need to push things, and you can't be stagnant. You do need to progress to improve. That is true, but you can do it smartly. So like just think about it. Do you really need to squat to get huge quads? I didn't squat this past year. My legs grew more than they ever have. My legs are bigger than they ever have been. I didn't do one fucking squat in the last year. There are a lot of bodybuilders that don't squat. Do you need to deadlift for bodybuilding? I don't know. Do you need to do flat bench presses for bodybuilding? Probably not. So the goal with bodybuilding is to stimulate the target muscle, cause an adaptation, i.e. muscle protein synthesis, growth, and rinse, wash, repeat, and do it again. And it's like I said earlier, if you're hurt or you're constantly hurt, you can't train optimally, and you can't grow if you're hurt. If you're not in the gym, if you're recovering from an injury or you're holding back because you're hurt, you're not going to grow. It's just that simple. In bodybuilding, you have to play the long game. It takes years. Some guys can get by with it. Some guys are just built differently than others. You look at Ronnie. Ronnie trained that way for a long time until the wheels fell off. And eventually the wheels do fall off with the guys that are HIIT trainers. You look at Dorian. Dorian got huge, and, he had his run, but then he started tearing everything. Everything started falling apart. And if Dorian had just backed off a little bit, when he hit his peak, he probably could have won several more Mr. Olympias. He probably could have extended his career about maybe another decade. I mean, I think he was just in his mid-30s when he retired. He could have made a shit ton more money. I mean, I've even heard him acknowledge that. So, I mean, once you hit a certain point, all you need to do is maintain and polish. Dorian wasn't going to get any bigger. I realized that, sometimes your identity is wrapped up in this training, the HIIT style training, but, it's the same thing with gear. Like, you don't need to push heavy doses of gear to maintain. It doesn't take a ton. It takes less food to maintain. So there are times when you need to push your training. There are times when you need to push the gear. There are times when you need to push the food, and that's when you're trying to progress and add more size. But it doesn't take much to maintain and polish. It really doesn't. And, another thing, at least guys now seem to do deloads here and there to allow the body a chance to recover from the stress that you're putting on it. I know in my day, nobody deloaded. That wasn't a thing. You just went balls to the wall all the time. That never happened. Believe me, I've been through a ton of injuries, and I especially think about it a lot now because I'm making progress heading into my late 40s and early 50s. I don't know how much longer I can sustain this, but I know if I want to sustain it, I'm a bit of an anomaly right now, making this kind of progress in my late 40s. And this may be the last year that I can do this. I don't know. But I know that my odds are better if I'm smart about my approach to things, if I use reasonable gear dosages, if I use safer compounds, if I'm smarter with my training. I, stay away from the lifts that have high risk of injury. I can still achieve overload and the proper stimulus that is necessary to cause an adaptation without, a squat isn't the only exercise that can stimulate adaptation. It just isn't. There are other choices, and there are other choices that are safer that would protect your spine. You think about the load that you're putting on your spine with a squat versus a hack squat or a leg press. You're not putting all that load on your spine with those and putting your spine at risk. Same thing with a deadlift. Do you need to deadlift for a big back? I don't, probably not. Maybe, I don't know. But you can do machine rows, you can do dumbbell rows, you can do barbell rows and not put your back at such risk. You see so many bodybuilders that go out with pec tears. And they almost always happen on flat benches. Can you achieve a stimulus that will cause an adaptation with, say, a dumbbell press or a machine press? Probably, if you do it correctly. Anyway, guys, some food for thought. If you want to train hardcore, I think people think I'm saying that you shouldn't train hardcore. If it's what you enjoy, by all means, go for it. I'm a person that's all for doing what you love. Just know that there's a price for everything, and there's only so long you can sustain certain levels of intensity. Eventually it comes back. So, but if that's what you enjoy, you keep doing you. I'm not judging. I just know for me in my state of life in my late 40s that's unsustainable for me at this point, and I have to train differently. I have to train more intelligently. Anyway, guys, thank you for watching. Appreciate you listening to my rant. Please put any comments in the comment section if you have questions or you think I'm wrong. I want to hear from you. Thanks.